Hello,
Guys.
Helen. Helen and
Hello.
Artie, how's it going?
All
Good.
right, then. How
Happy
you doing?
Saturday.
Yes, happy Saturday.
Saturday. Extra mess.
Yes, extra. I have been out for lunch. I have had a little bit of prosecco. It has to be
Oh
said.
dear. Oh,
Fabulous.
God.
Lovely.
I like the fact we all spoke there at the same time, as if we'd just been accused of being anti-Semitic. That was when I
know.
That was it was such. Let's begin with this because obviously it's been going around my mind. After it happened, there were a couple of things I was very disappointed by. One was he threw that in as a hand grenade, intending to derail the conversation, so we would never get to things like Leah Thomas, which finally we did, and it was in a very revealing moment. But it kind of showed me, like, you know, I know that Grace Lavery is going to be debating Helen Joyce, and I hope someone films it, because it would be great to see these tactics play out in front of a crowd.
It's going to be live streamed, man. It is certainly going to be filmed. It's live streamed. I've got my ticket. I am going. I'm going in person.
Do you think Grace is going to have like slides with sissy porn behind?
Well, you actually got a yes out of Grace Lavery as well, didn't you?
Well, I did yesterday, but I've just come back from lunch to find that Grace Lavery said no. I think what Grace Lavery is doing is playing games because, well, honestly, once you've revealed yourself as being somebody who doesn't think that anything should be a crime, did you see that?
Yes,
Lavery said literally nothing should be a crime. Not murder, not paedophilia, not rape, nothing. Nothing should be crime, and all prisons should be opened. So once you've revealed that is your position, there is literally no point in arguing about nuance. What's the point in arguing about changing rooms if you don't believe that like anything should be a crime? It's just pointless, isn't it?
Can you imagine how sheltered and privileged your life should be that you don't think anything should be a crime? You know, I come from a family that was very much devastated by crime. And the idea that everybody should just be free to do whatever they want is deeply fucking insulting to anybody who's been a victim of crime.
Oh yes, that's right. Because you had your father was murdered, wasn't he?
My father was brutally murdered. Yeah, I know exactly about crime. Like, fuck off, you know.
No,
well, you know, as you say, it comes from a position of the purest privilege. Like Lavery is male, is you know, very, very well off.
Oh, so obviously so as well. I mean, it was like, oh, look at the wine. What did he say? I can't do it in an American accent. The wine mom. I've got wine mom energy.
Oh, right.
To be fair, I am a mother. I do like wine, but you know, it is definitely used in a denigrating way towards women. I mean, he's obviously misogynistic. And then he was like, "No, some of my best friends are wine moms," and you're like, "Yeah, all right, then, mate. Then we're all good." Or no, honestly, it's and the hoops. It's a game. It's all a game. It's do you believe this? Oh, I don't believe it. What do you mean by right? The pretense that you have to define everything. I mean, it's just boring. It's like
just a game.
But yes. Yeah. Yes, Leah Thomas. And now he's all like, oh, no, actually, you've changed the question. Now you're saying this. And honestly, I'm bored now.
Why do we shouldn't have to fight over, like, if you have a position and you hold it firmly and you know that you're confident in it, you don't have to play all this sophistry bullshit. You don't have to obfuscate. You don't have to make all these stupid little word games. You can just confidently, and you can be empathetic, you can be understanding of your opponent's position to draw out exactly what their position is so that you can criticize it. Instead, they just want to keep everything in like a cloud of nonsense where nothing makes any sense so that you don't have to think anything through. Because once you clear the cloud and once you get points clearly laid out, like Helen Joyce is extraordinary at doing, suddenly everything just makes everything's crystal clear what the issues are here. You know what I mean? So they're just deliberately trying to keep everything as fuzzy and hazy as possible so that they can live in this liminal space where they can pretend that they're women and they can indulge in some kind of sexual paraphilias and nobody has to see what's going on, you know? Yeah.
And a liminal space where, you know, it is actually necessary not to know information like that Leah Thomas was exposing himself, to his teammates. It is these people are literally closing off any such information that might actually force them to change their view. And it was so revealing when we asked her question, Helen, and he said, yes, you could see you could see him realizing the mistake.
Oh, but the hesitation was interesting. I mean, honestly, I was a bit wary of before we had him on the show. I was a bit wary. I thought, I couldn't really see that there was very much upside for us. It's, it was all sort of downside risk. And I think, I think we've got to put our hands up and say, I don't think it went particularly well. I mean, he did what he come to do, which was, sort of toss in a bomb of it's all moral panic and anti-Semites. And then what can you do? There's 3 or 4 of us who want to say, yeah, and then everyone's talking over each other. I thought Andy did a really good job. Fair play, Andy.
I wish.
I wish not fucked off and let Andy do it. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I should have done. I should have turned off our mics, and I should have just left Andy's on. Because basically his plan was to turn us into the Italian Parliament, and he managed it. He kind of threw a bomb and ran away. Anti-Semitism. When have we discussed Jewish people or anti-Semitism in the 200 episodes or whatever we have here?
Ridiculous.
When did Andy discuss anti-Semitism in his letter exchange? Not a single mention of it in the whole letter exchange. We brought him on.
Was just smug. It was bad faith, smug. Like, really, even though we were yelling a lot, I can't imagine even anyone on anyone's side not seeing his performance being like, okay, that is like the dictionary definition of smug and bad faith.
Yes, it's true. It's interesting actually, because I did think, oh shit, that really didn't go particularly well. I mean, it didn't go particularly badly, because he certainly showed bad faith in debating, it's just bad faith. But it was interesting to me how many people saw this. There's a lot of Jesus Christ, that was bad faith. Definition of bad faith argument, which I thought, well, at least people have now sort of been exposed to somebody just behaving in that manner. That sort of smug,
it was great to see it live.
I am much smarter than you, and I'm going to run round in circles, and I'm not actually going to answer anything, because to me it isn't about getting anything done. It's not about achieving anything.
It's just an intellectual game.
Coming across as it's just I'm just going to have an intellectual wank.
Yeah. Artie pointed out that he couldn't look at him when Artie was talking about experiencing dysphoria as a child. He has this move where he kind of grills.
I was shocked because he was staring right into the camera the whole time, and then I'm telling him about my personal experience of experiencing dysphoria and the facts of what it's like to be a feminine boy, and how I'm really glad I didn't have my dick chopped off before I was 14 years old. And he's just like, couldn't look at me. He was looking down, looking awkward, looking nervous, because he purports to be all for the LGBT and all this. Well, I'm right fucking here. I'm a gender non-conforming gay man, and I'm telling you, I don't agree with you. And he can't look at me.
I don't think you're gender non-conforming anymore.
Not anymore. I think I'm kind of like butched up.
But I did find him on Twitter, somebody answering him saying, hey man, I think you did a really good job, but maybe you should have introduced, they didn't really understand you, maybe you should have introduced the concept of something like a thought terminating cliche before you spoke to them. And I answered, and I said, you mean he could have used as an example the thought terminating cliche, trans women are women? Which is much better, because it's much better when it's written down, because it's there and it's always there.
And also describing a question as a thought terminating cliche.
That's not a cliche. It's just a question you still can't answer, and we've had to ask it so many times it's turning into a cliche. But it's not about. I genuinely
enjoyed the bold use of the phrase, it's a thought terminating cliche, as a thought terminating cliche. Yes. It was designed to stop the conversation. I was like,
I know Daniel Dennett, if he ever sees this, he'd be spinning.
They just simply, I mean, what was fascinating about it, and I was poleaxed. I was poleaxed by the bad faith. I genuinely thought that this is how fucking naive I am. I genuinely thought we were going to get an idea of how someone can hold like concepts like lesbians shouldn't be coerced into sex, and yet some men are lesbians and those lesbians should have sex with them. I thought, wow, maybe there's some kind of, we can get an insight into the balancing act going on in these people's minds. But of course, they can't do that, because as the question about Leah Thomas proved, they know that every answer they give just puts them on the side of the bad guys.
Yeah. So it's bad faith all across. Yeah.
All they could do
worst
is argue.
example. Yeah, I was so infuriated. Andy Lewis pointed out that in their letter wiki discussion, he cited some statistic, and it's a staggering number: the increase in teenage girls, adolescent girls identifying as trans and having medical interventions. That obviously the number has gone up astronomically. Obviously, it's skyrocketed, and no matter what statistic you cite, yeah, but 5,000%. The bad faith is like, well, I'm just going to, until you can prove that number with absolute certainty, I'm just going to drag my feet and assume that the real number is closer to 0. And the same thing happened. They're not saying, okay, it might be a little up or down from 5,000. I'm just going to assume it's 0 until you give me astronomical proof. And when I said that there were 21,000 detransitioners on the Reddit channel, he's like, he didn't see that as proof that obviously there is a lot of detransitioners showing up, but we need harder statistics before we get an exact number. He just said, I'm just going to drag my feet and assume it's closer to 0 until proven otherwise. But remember, that's not an empirical number. So I can just safely pretend it's still 0 in the meantime, that there's no intermediate interim. There's obviously a trend going here, Remember,
I used to say that at the beginning of getting into this, I would argue with my great friends at work, and one of them said to me, you're just cherry picking or nut picking. He's picking the nuttiest people on the internet and arguing against those. When mainstream politicians are doing it, then come back to me and saying it, and I felt that we'd gone right back to where we were, where people are saying, where's the problem? Like they're literally looking you in the eyes and gaslighting you and saying, well, there's no problem. What do you mean she's lost a job? Well, she's got a job. What are you talking about?
She's still doing research.
And you're like, honestly, at this point, there is no point. Fine, like just ignore it, but don't bother wasting our time. Like, don't have honestly, it's just rude, isn't it? It's rude to come on the show and just say, I'm just going to wank for an hour and I'm wasting your time.
Yeah. Listen, someone just said this here. Rothbard, Prince Jewish striker, isn't that Aaron Dude was pleased his punch with the bomb he dropped in his reaction? Graham, should have defended Billick more aggressively. I'm actually not as familiar with Billick's work as other people, and I understand.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the point. Like, literally, you're so far away from anti-Semitism here that you genuinely don't even know what the hell's going on. Where's that even come from?
Well, that's kind of, it is an interesting. No, I will say I have heard rumors about anti-Semitism.
Heard it, yes.
And it probably is the reason why I don't quote her more often. But I can't be sure of those. I need to do more research on it, and I apologize to her if it's unfounded. But
well, the little I've seen, there's some justification there. I don't know the full details, but I've seen something myself that crossed a personal line. So I already will say I'm not going to defend Billick because I've seen something she's written that crossed my line for sure. So
but you don't have to defend Billick as a person. But actually, she may have, in fact, said something that you can't say. Well, this is true. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I wouldn't." But it's just ridiculous tribalism, isn't it? You can't. Look, if you've touched that, you're tainted.
And then the degrees of separation on top of that.
And honestly, I also don't think that with all the rest of the conversation, with everything else he said, I've got to take what he said with a massive pinch of salt. I don't even think he really believes it. It's just a bomb to throw to derail everything and to say, hey, look how cool I am.
And honestly, to terminate thoughts. He's trying to terminate thinking about this.
So someone just said, sorry, there are a couple of things I want to address. Someone just said this. That's a fair point. But I guess the reason I am bringing it up is to kind of explain why Billick is not on my site all the time. It is because I've heard these rumors and I need to look into more of it. Sorry again for bringing it up, but that is why I don't. So to have this guy trail through my site and find the one link that was put in by Trish on a completely unrelated topic in, I don't know what post that Trish did years ago.
And it didn't link to Billick. It linked to an article that linked to Billick.
Oh, really? It wasn't even a direct link? Oh,
no, it's a transgender trend. And then transgender trans cited an article by Billick, which wasn't one of the ones that had any issues at all. So it's
Aaron,
just like
Aaron is a very dishonest man. He's a very dishonest man. The whole reason for that was that so we couldn't get more moments like the Leah Thomas moment. His positions are he cannot defend them. He cannot defend them. So all he can do is engage in I guess, a kind of version of gish galloping, which is more like endless accusations over and over again, and you're supposed to come up with some solution now to me linking to someone a year ago or something.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
But what I find really astonishing is what's going on in his mind, that he's not looking at our arguments. He's not even giving them a minute's thought. Instead, he's like, there are literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of women daily engaged in this, and some men and some gays and more people every day talking about this stuff, including heads of transgender organizations and transgender medical clinics, including clinicians across the board. They're all speaking up and saying there are problems here. And there's this one person who made one article that seems to maybe have crossed the line, and that's he's just focused on that, and everything is about that. He had his Joseph McCarthy moment. I hold in my hand a list of names of people who have ever mentioned Jennifer Bilek. You know,
yes.
It was like, are you crazy? You know?
Yeah. And here's another point. Someone said a very good point here. You know, exactly. There's so many examples of boundary breaking and children being indoctrinated and groomed,
or even just death threats against women. I mean, honestly, why don't we just start there?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But there is so much of that. I mean, I'm not even really interested in using that as an argument. I mean, I'd rather actually just argue about the points. Like those are just extra appalling things that are coming out of this movement. But there are genuine arguments that I can argue that I don't even need to say, oh, look at all the death threats you're sending. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous. It's not really a useful argument, I don't think. But of course, it's the argument that someone needs to employ when they know that arguing about the points is too difficult. It's the same as, you know, do you believe in, you know, the Wiesbar thing, the Leah Thomas thing? It's very complicated. But, you know, actually, when it comes down to it, you know, it's not, you know, you can sort of intellectually navel gaze over it for as long as you like, and you can pretend you don't know the idea of what a right is, you know, what is an actual right? Are we talking about government, or who's going to enforce it, etc., and you're like these women are in there. Is this bloke allowed in or not? Like, literally, do you believe that this bloke should be in there or not? Oh, it's complicated. Do you believe? Do you? Yes.
I also love this.
Honestly, once you've said yes, once you've said that, what the fuck was all of that about? What was it about? It was an obfuscation. It was designed so that he wouldn't actually have to go down the road of saying
because if he knew his answer was yes from the beginning, then why didn't he just say it at the beginning? Why did he throw up all these roadblocks? You know? Yeah.
Once you said yes, what you know, all your other points are moot. It's pointless. You've said yes. We know what you believe.
Well, I can't believe he answered it, because he didn't answer anything. His most common answer was, that's an interesting question, well worthy of debate. It's like, yes, we are here to have that debate.
We're doing it. This is the debate. That's the other thing. He was so unprepared. He didn't. It's an interesting. There's an interesting interview with Mark.
To be fair, we were particularly prepared. Well, we were prepared for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we always do that. We put our cards on the table, and we will. These questions come up, and he says they're really interesting and worth debating, but he won't venture a position on them, you know. But whereas we do, and then we get criticized for it. If you say no, male-born person with a penis should not be in women's spaces, and you put your answer on the table, they attack you for it, and then you turn around and ask them, oh yeah, well, do you think the answer is yes then? And then they refuse to answer. As long as they can say,
hang on, let me stare at my navel for a while.
We have the guts to put our positions out there to be examined and cross-examined, and we get attacked for it, and they never have the guts to ever venture an opinion. They just talk around it.
It's all about that. Like Stuart Lee is a great example. Stuart Lee, the way that he kind of signals to his fans is he puts Joyland Mom on his pedestal. That's going well. And he puts me in the bin. So his point, and Owen Jones in the pedestal. So his point is very clear. I haven't done anything but this in 5 years. The last time I spoke to Stuart Lee was about 3 years ago at Latitude. Didn't seem to have any problem with me then. But he does this like little thing just to kind of, it's like a gang sign to show that he's down with the kids, you know. But he will never stand up for his beliefs because he knows he's wrong. It's that simple. He knows he's wrong.
In the gray area.
Stuart Lee is supporting rape culture, and he
that is
cannot
literally
defend that.
why I started asking this question. You know, people say, "Oh, you just ask it. You want to demonize trans people. You ask it for this. You want to paint people as sexual predators. You want to ask a gotcha question." Genuinely started asking this question to say, "Is this a right that you believe in? Is when you say trans rights, is this a right that you believe in?" Because you know, this is what people are pushing for. Are you aware? Do you agree with this? And instead of saying, well, actually, I agree with this, but no, there are limits and I don't agree with this, it blows their minds. And they have to say, oh my God, you're the sexual predator. That's right. Well, it's you. You're asking this question and therefore you're a sexual predator. And you're like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you so ashamed of your position? Why are you so coy, so ashamed of putting your position out there? I mean, there's trolls
who come to my site. All they do is they mention my divorce, talk about, I don't know, like they think they're going to trigger me by taking up accounts by people who like I've interacted with on YouTube and stuff like that, and never can they address the issues. They just can't address the issues, you know. And again, it's because they know they're wrong. They know they're wrong. So this kind of trolling doesn't really affect me anymore because it's so revealing in itself. Even though the thing with Aaron was a shit show, it was so revealing. It was so great to see.
Yes, that is true. That is true. Yes.
And Helen, I am so sorry. You know, people complained about me speaking over you, but at one point I just had to calm it down. I thought,
no, I'm like Graham. Shut up.
It was, but also
I want to have a go at him.
I know that's how it was. It was terrible, and I wish I'd handled it better. If I'd been prepared for the deflection move, I would have handled it better, and we wouldn't have been shouting. But apologies that it did turn into a shit show.
No, it's fine.
But again, useful shit show. You know. Hey, listen, let's talk about other things. What else has been going on?
Well, I wanted to laugh at Joyle and Mom for saying, well, we might have lost, but we didn't lose at all. And you're like, how can you even go there? That you're so narcissistic that for you, somebody saying, no, you've lost this one, where you say, yes, but in every way apart from having lost, we won.
Yeah. Like there's my favorite aspect of it was the like I basically I said that, you know, you couldn't really say we completely lost and we're humiliated.
Can I just say,
and the very basis.
Somebody said Ray was so annoyed his camera blew up. Yes.
Yeah. That might happen again, by the way. My computer's being very weird. But Joyland says, I put this in my Substack, so quoting myself, I apologize. But basically Joyland said, you know, they couldn't basically tell the people who've been sending them money that not only were they humiliated in the judgment, but the very basis of their existence was called into question because they were ruled to not have standing, which means they had nothing to do with this issue, and therefore they couldn't they couldn't be involved or something like that. Yeah. Now that will be applied to every case they take on moving forward. So it's just been completely undermined. So I wrote in the Substack that Joyland went with a little half truth, if you will. We won. It's like the fucking nerve of the guy, you know. But
there's something going on. They raise so much money for these lawsuits that they can't even really be a part of. There's something sketchy going on there.
Well, when I saw Matt Hancock's letter, I thought, that actually that feels like. Sorry, I should explain. Matt Hancock wrote a letter where he really tore him to shreds, and I read it and I just thought. This might even lead to an investigation at some point. You know, if we get a couple of cases like this, I don't know. There might be we might see, like Joyland blamed his comms team. Is there a comms team? Isn't it just Joyland and his phone? I don't think there's a comms team.
I don't even know if he's officially even a part of Good Law Project anymore. Doesn't he just kind of like on paper he doesn't actually have a role with it or something?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I think he had to announce that he's not on the board of directors and he doesn't have a formal role with the Good Law Project. He just talks about it all the time or something. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm making that up. Someone in the comments, maybe we'll figure that out. But
yeah. Well, it's the kind of transparency that marks this movement.
Exactly.
That we know so much about them. But yeah, was there anything else that happened this week, or was there any other aspect of that we haven't covered? I'm trying to think.
Well, I think I do think it was quite interesting. The whole idea of it being a moral panic as well, because actually, I before going to bed, I thought. Yeah, and I tweeted it out. I'm thinking, honestly, for fuck's sake, why aren't people panicked about this immoral movement? I mean, fucking, we need people to be more panicked. Like they really should be. When you've got men openly saying, yes, men should be able to undress, or people with a penis should be able to undress in changing rooms with women and girls. And these women and girls are non-consenting. They have not consented, and where men are saying, yep, they should be in there. Like, this is the time for people to panic about the morality here. Jesus Christ. Come on, this is the time.
The real problem is that there is not a moral panic. That is the problem. Yes, that is definitely, that's if people were cognizant of what was going on, there would indeed be a moral panic, but it would be a justified one, a completely justified one, because we need to get these people out of schools. We need to get them out of schools, we need to get them out of, children's reading groups, the queering of children's literature. We need to really be on top of every time we see words like that. Like that was one that, what's his name appeared, that poet, that left-wing poet who got into trouble recently. I can't remember his name. Oh, fucking hell. Someone's going on about... Look, the thing about Billick is I didn't mean to trash her, so please give me a break. I am just reporting what I've been operating under for the last few months on this subject. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to insult anyone. I take it back. But sorry, what was I talking about there before I distracted myself?
We were talking about this the dark side of this into schools. I'm beginning, like, for me, I was very much, I really cared about the use of young children as sort of pawns in order to prop up the movement. But I'm getting a little bit more worried about the sinister side of it. Especially, and I think this is something that has been coming clear, and women have been talking about recently. This, and I see it, obviously, it's massively directed at me when I, like the use of the word penis all the time, because fucking have to. If you're going to push for people with a cock in the rooms, then women are going to say, no, we don't want to see a cock. I mean, honest to God, it's not fucking hard, is it? But anyway, so, but now I see people all the time saying, oh, she is a sexual predator, she is a sexual harasser, or why are these women so keen on undressing in front of kids, flashing in front of kids?
Oh, yes.
What did somebody say yesterday? Flashing their fudge. And you're like, fucking, what is even that? What is a fudge, for Christ's sake, in front of kids? And people are saying, it's interesting. They are so so away from the reality of what being a parent, what being a mother actually is. You take your kids fucking everywhere with you. You can't even pee for 3 years without the door open. These kids are around you like all of the time, like crowing and pawing, and they don't let you go. But they're sort of like so many steps removed from the idea of what being a mother is, that for them, just the idea of being in a changing room is porn. It is all about porn, and it is all about flashing and getting your cock out. And they understand instinctively that there's something wrong with the idea of going in there with kids. And they simply can't, and they're projecting it onto you any other way than women who go into changing rooms. They must be a problem, despite the fact that this has been happening for like decades. And for some reason, nobody's ever thought to say, raise the alarm until men wanted to go in there. And then now it's a massive fucking problem. But it is very much about, splitting up women, But here's what somebody was saying, it is. But I've seen quite a lot of idea about age-segregated changing rooms, where you're literally talking about splitting children away from their parents when they get undressed. Like, I mean, come on. What surely when you start having a movement that is pushing for this, you've now got to start to think that what the hell is going on here, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I think people really can't come to terms with the sexual paraphilia aspect of this, even though it's so obvious. It's been known throughout all time, you know, that cross-dressing and transsexualism has in some way been connected to, you know, in some, not always, but in many ways, there's a strong connection to fetish. We've always known that. People just can't put it together. They're just so frightened of the idea that it's like, we've talked about this before, how broadly the LGBT movement's been doing this, but specifically with trans rights, we're trying to destigmatize cross-dressing fetish by saying it's okay to have a certain amount of cross-dressing fetish as long as you keep it private within boundaries. Instead, we've gone this other route that says we're trying to destigmatizing it by saying there's nothing to do with fetish here whatsoever. It's wholesome and it's natural and it's lovely. And of course,
that do it at work.
Do it at work. Do it in changing rooms around children. You know, it's all fine. And that's not true. It's factually not true. I've worked at gay bars. I've worked at a trans bar. I've seen what, you know, a lot of people, men who identify as women, there are some people who really just, even if it comes from AGP, you can sense that it's not necessarily an explicitly fetishistic thing day in, day out. These are people who just have an attraction to themselves as a female who are trying to figure that out. But there are a lot of other people who are just you could just see that they're turned on when they're wearing women's clothes and they're actively in a sexual mind space, you know?
I would go even
mode,
further,
you know?
and I would say they're turned on by breaking boundaries. I just posted a piece about a drag artist who was featured in a BBC piece about, you know, our LGBT rights moving backwards. And of course, you know, there was nothing in it about how the LGBT Alliance have been targeted or how Alison Bailey was targeted by Stonewall. It's this drag queen, you know. And then we found all these photographs of this drag queen in the same outfit every time. And as we say in the piece, he must be the only drag queen in the world who doesn't know how to talk, because his penis and balls are very, very clearly visible through his costume. And and there's so many pictures of him talking to kids in the same costume. And it's like, you know, this guy, I'll tell you an interesting story. I used to know someone who worked at Turner Broadcasting, right, in the children's department. They worked on children's cartoons and stuff. And they told me that the producers of these cartoons used to get so bored because some of the cartoons were so basic and so kind of they were just like filler for in between things. They used to get so bored that they would sneak in rude
like single frames
references, and I don't think they would ever cut in frames, but but they would sneak in sex references and stuff like this because they're so bored, they just want to break boundaries and they don't really give a fuck about the kids, you know. And that's what like drag queen story are, you know. I mean, why does it exist? Who is it helping? Why not speak to a lesbian nurse at the NHS? Why not speak to a gay guy who's a builder? You know, why not speak to brave people? You know, why are you getting in something? Do you know what it is? And also the BBC piece, right? They wouldn't have anyone like that, like an NHS lesbian or anyone like that, or you know, as their main picture. Their main picture is a drag queen, a completely grotesque caricature of womanhood. Because if they had an NHS lesbian or something like that, then I guarantee you, the complaint would be, well, how do we know she's queer? The only way you know she's queer is by it being a fucking drag queen, because drag queens are for some reason centered in queer theory, you know. So, you know, it's just a mess. Someone also pointed out that Aaron mentioned the satanic panic, and that was a big moment as well that I wish I'd been able to actually talk during, because of course, one of the people who was behind the satanic panic is
Aaron Saft.
What? Yes,
Diane Ehrensaft.
Diane Ehrensaft. Diane Ehrensaft is also the person who said that you might be able to tell that babies are trans because they pop the button of their onesie.
Oh yes, to make it into a fucking skirt.
Yes, to make it into a skirt. This person was central in the satanic panic and is now central in gender ideology. So what does that tell you, Aaron? You fucking skeptic only in name. You know what I mean? And Helen, you pointed out something to me as well. I just want to say this. Remember you were saying how they turned the thing around on you and say that you asking a question about safeguarding must mean that you're perverse. They did the exact same thing to JK Rowling. When she was trying to promote her book for children, they posted pornography in the replies underneath the book. You know, they posted many examples of pornography under the book, and then they turned around and said that it was her fault because she didn't. What was it again? She didn't do something. She didn't.
She ignored porn.
She ignored them or something.
Exactly.
That's the argument. She ignored porn tweeted at children.
Yes.
Those fucking evil.
Because those are the words she used. Because she said, "I've ignored porn tweeted at children," i.e., I've not responded to it. I've reported every single one, but I've ignored it. I've not engaged with it. Is what she said. And then, of course, somebody made a meme out of it. But she did get them to delete and retract. I do love that about her. I really do. But did you see the New York Times advert?
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
Oh boy. Hey, can we do a screen share and show it to people? Is that possible? Can you do that, Artie?
I can't from mine, no.
Let me see if I can do it.
Close your tabs.
No, there's something. It's shocking. So the article, it's a picture of a woman who's supposed to be a New York Times reader. She says, "I'm thinking of a world."
No, Liana is imagining Harry Potter without its creator.
Right.
And you're like, that's the first part. So here you've got presumably a non-binary person. I don't know. It might be a woman. But Liana is imagining Harry Potter without its creator, and then it goes down, and then it's the most astonishing thing where the New York Times is saying, that independent journalism, independent thinkers. However, if you dare stray from this line where the woke line, then we will throw you under a bus. Like independent. I mean, it's the most astonishing thing that I think that I've ever seen. This fucking mainstream newspaper calling themselves independent, sort of basically saying, just absolutely denigrating JK Rowling, saying, it's a shame, isn't it, that we can't have Harry Potter without the person that created it. Let's try and ignore an incredibly successful, philanthropic, kind, thoughtful woman because she has defended the need for single-sex spaces. Yeah. But we're independent thinkers, guys.
Yeah. It's just amazing. Hold on a sec. I think I can share it. Let's see if I can figure this out. Hold on a sec. Window, Chrome tab, entire screen.
I'm tempted to boycott Wordle now.
No, I
don't boycott Wordle.
Why would you boycott Wordle? Where did that come from?
Because the New York Times bought it.
Oh, did they? Oh, those.
Yes, man.
Wow.
It's still free, though. It's still free.
Yes. We can have our cake and eat it.
Fucking bastards, I mean, one of the things that has marked this time, again, I've said this before, but it's the age of Trump, right? Everybody looked at Trump, and rather than thinking, well, we shouldn't do this anymore, they thought, yeah, good idea, we'll do that. And one of the characteristics of the age of Trump is saying anything you want about people. Oh, such and such is a mass murderer. Such and such is this, such and such is that. So people like, Laurie Penny and Owen Jones and stuff can call me a bigot, and there's no pushback. There's no pushback for them. It's just kind of accepted, And it's just one of the many things about this. But what's really frightening is when you see it in a magazine like the New York Times, when you see it in the newspaper. That's when it becomes weird. Yes. That's when you realize how completely the New York Times has been captured by a generation of fuckwits. I mean, these are the worst people. This is the worst generation of fuckwits who have come out and decided that everything that doesn't, Aaron gave another example, and I always love this. I presume Aaron's on the left, but these guys on the left, they hate this. They hate society, unless it's doing things like figuring out when men should go into women's spaces, then suddenly there'll be a kind of a system that Aaron can't go into because, you know, it's going to be complicated, but it'll be figured out, you know, and then those abusive men won't get into those spaces. So it's such a trust in the state. I guess that does go with being on the left. It's such an incredible amount of trust in the state that nothing will ever go wrong.
What I find astonishing is the people actually use the argument of, well, how are you going to police that? As if you know, without checking genitals, as if you check every single person that goes into a shop to prevent them from, you know, do you have police at every shop doorway? Because otherwise people will shoplift. I mean, it's the most insane. Or you know, or like if people don't stop for the magic lights that stop the cars, you know, that you have to have police to enforce it. I mean, of course you do have enforcement, but not at every street corner, not at every traffic light. I mean, how is it possible that we actually have to explain the way that, like, the normal workings of society to people just because they want to force men into fucking women's changing rooms? I mean, Jesus Christ, man.
I think it comes from,
and people like you see these arguments, like, otherwise people that you would think are kind of normal and rational, but they're like, no, honestly, you just want to check their genitals on the way in, don't you?
Well, it's tied to sorry, Artie, I'll let you jump in a sec, but it's tied to what Lavery was saying about there being no such thing as crime, or nothing should be a crime. You know, it's just it's a form of fashionable anarchism that is just fucking, you know, ridiculous. It doesn't withstand any scrutiny at all. Sorry, Artie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's sort of like, I think people just got really confused about gay rights and women's rights, in that in women's rights, a lot of the time has been pushing to say there's no differences between men and women in most areas of society, like in a workplace. You know, you shouldn't have less opportunities to excel in the workplace just because you're a woman. You know, there should be just as many female presidents as male presidents, and we're not seeing that. So there's a big push on that front. But people have a hard time realizing that doesn't mean you just pretend that there's no such thing as women and men ever, you know, that there's no distinction. Like I've said before, women's rights means when the distinction between male and female matters, it really fucking matters. And when the distinction between male and female doesn't matter, it really fucking doesn't matter. It's not a matter of pretending it always matters. And it's not a matter of pretending it never matters. It's a matter of figuring out when it does and when it doesn't. When the material reality of a female body being different than a male body means we have to make special rules so that women can live equally in society. And when the material reality of a female body being different than a male body doesn't play a role, you know, like your ability to be a president or something like that. And gay rights is something similar, where we're talking about, you know, gay people tend to be a little bit more gender atypical than straight people, just a little bit. Gay men are shifted a little bit on the more feminine side overall. Lesbians are shifted a little bit on the more masculine side overall. And that leads to all these questions about gender roles in societies, and people just don't know how to work it all out. So they just tell themselves the simple answer is, if I just always pretend I can't tell the difference between a man and a woman, and I just take any rules that say this is something for men and this is something for women, and treat them all as evil and hostile and regressive and, you know, from the past, something to be transcended, then I'm being positive and jaunty and good. And it's like, first of all, the trans issue doesn't do that at all. The trans is not about erasing the distinctions between men and women. It's about very much reinforcing them and crossing the lines, you know, you know, it's about making sure that female means female clothing, feminine clothing, and male means masculine clothing. It's about reinforcing stereotypes and just saying certain people can cross over if they choose to. People haven't figured that out either. That often they'll see let's say a trans woman who's very clearly male, and they see that as like, that's a man who's transgressing the boundaries of manhood, and we're somehow supposed to go along with this by asserting that they can see a woman and that they can't see a man in a dress kind of thing in front of them. And I think it just confuses people. You know, they just can't figure out. You know,
but that is, I mean, there's more, isn't there? I mean, you know, there's well-meaning people who have just been told this is gay rights 2.0, and they've just said, yeah, okay, that's the easiest way for me to look at it. But then there are many obvious jumping on the bandwagon. You know, we've seen, you know, somebody like we were saying last week, or I was saying last week, I do like to repeat myself. Billy Bragg, you know, he knows now, right? He knows. It's not like this is new for him. He knows what's going on. He's heard the arguments. but he is still prepared to say, okay, well, I'm going to just, women don't count here. Women don't count. And then you've got even further, you've got the woke bros that absolutely are using it with glee, with joy to put women down. Massive amounts of, the way that people talk to me on Twitter, the use of my name all the time, the condescension, and the idea. I mean, I think one of my most popular tweets, and I retweeted a lot because I feel it a lot, which is a lot of trans rights are predicated on the idea that women are really fucking stupid. And we can't see what's going on, and we don't know the arguments, and they'll be able to pull the wool over our eyes. And if they say, "Oh, actually, you're not a feminist, you're not fighting for women, or you're right wing," we'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I don't want that." And we're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, give me something better than that, for God's sake, don't treat me as if I'm really that fucking stupid." And it's through the whole thing. It's like it's a seam that goes through the whole thing. It's women are fucking idiots.
I know people don't really know a lot about Gamergate, and I actually sometimes put myself in that category because I'm not sure how much of it I understood myself. But I think that really what this is an extension of Gamergate. Like, we've got to stop thinking in terms of left and right. What's happened with the internet is that there's been a kind of a gold rush for grifters, right? You can call yourself, as one person did, super gamer girl, and look like
he's a bloke with a beard.
A bloke with a beard, yeah. And you know what I mean? And there used to be a phrase that was kind of popular at one point. It's something like, on the internet, no one knows your dog, or something like that. Was that the phrase? Can you remember this?
Yeah, the famous New Yorker cartoon or it was like a Far Side cartoon, maybe.
Yeah.
One of those.
On the internet, no one knows your dog, or something like this. And everyone seems to have forgotten this basic rule, that you really could be talking to anyone. And that's what the incels, who I think glommed onto Gamergate, who really hated women, and I think are now glomming onto trans rights. Sorry, what was it? Oh God, my brain. Sometimes my brain just.
It's Saturday. You need to drink.
Yeah, no, it's like it's the same kind of, it's exactly the same things. Like I know people would say to me when I was defending a woman during Gamergate, they would say a certain thing, and they said the exact same thing during this, and they said, "She's not going to fuck you, Greg."
No, she's not going to fuck you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
you see that
yeah.
Wow.
But do you know what I mean? It's the same people. Basically what happened with Gamergate is Gamergate was a full frontal attack on women. But it was too blunt. So they went back, and I'm not saying that there was a top-down organization of this.
No, there wasn't. But the same people have seen an opportunity here.
Yes,
to put women down, to denigrate
and they
women,
took it
to derisory, and they've taken it, and they've run with it, and it's brilliant, and it's so much fun for them, because not only can they do it, people will praise them for it.
Not only can they
fucking win, isn't it?
They can get women thrown off Twitter. They can get women to lose their livelihoods. It is just a pure. It is the most powerful these
it is.
People have ever
actually
been.
This brings me back to something else I was saying. When I was talking about the idea that they are now sort of pushing the idea of age segregated changing rooms to sort of split women from their children. This whole movement as well is. I mean, you can see it that runs right the way through it is this hatred of women actually being able to be away from men. Even with changing rooms, for the people who aren't brave enough to say yes, men should be able to go into women's changing rooms. It's all like, we need separate cubicles, and again, it's about removing women's ability to be in a space by them, with other women. Like cubicles, you're separated. Getting you off Twitter, getting you banned off Twitter means again, you don't have that network. It's an absolute fear, and I think they are
Mumsnet, the thing they hate most.
Furious with, as you say, Mumsnet and GC sort of feminist groups. They're furious with them because here are women being able to organize and talk about things and laugh with each other, and it's something that they can't stand. They really, really, really want to get in there and split it all apart. Like women should not be able to organize away from men.
Yeah, this
the
is
formalized
basically
hostility.
the boys. This is basically the girls' clubhouse. It's the girls' treehouse. They want to get into the girls' treehouse.
They want in.
They're annoyed
They really
can't
do.
get in, and they're going to punish people who try and keep them out. You know, it's extraordinary. Can we just
bring it up for sure?
I want to talk about one thing that I think is a huge win for our side before we go, because it's just, I think, a marvelous thing. The photograph of Leah Thomas surrounded by the women. Have you seen that photograph?
I have. It's like a cult-like messiah type of figure. It's actually, I don't think that's a win. I think it's awful.
Oh, no. I guarantee, well, I could be wrong, right? But I think that even lib fems, right, who've been going along with this all this time, might just look at that and just think, actually, fuck that. Because it is so clearly the worship of a white, straight cheat by these idiot women, you know, one of whom even has a trans mask on her face.
I don't know the origin. I don't know the origin of the photo. Is it possible that it was staged? That you know, that they were told to surround it? I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But I think, I mean, you might be right. It might wake people up.
I think it will. And the best thing about it is that it's so religious. It's got a religious kind of, it looks like a Caravaggio or something, you know? and I just think it's a very powerful picture, because I just think that it does the opposite to what it appears to be doing. It appears to be centering and celebrating this man. But I think what it's actually doing is it's saying, this is wrong. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that's the intention of the photographer.
No, I'm sure it's not. Well, maybe not. But did you see the? Did you see him winning? There's a clip going around where he wins by like miles. You know, absolutely. I think it's like 7 seconds or something. And I saw Matthew D'Ancona tweeting it and saying, you know, can anyone look at this and tell me that they think it's fair? And you've got people going on about Michael Phelps's bat wings and some basketball player who's 7'1", and you're like, oh, come on. Like, you must know, you must look at that. And I mean, you must look at that and think, I'm just going to make this argument, but I can't really believe it. I don't really believe it. This is so obviously unfair. It's so obviously unfair. But still, I mean, there must be loads of people, thousands of people looking at that and thinking, yeah, that's unfair, but who aren't prepared to say anything. They are just ignoring it. Yeah. I mean, it looks, you know, it seems to me that this is the point where, I mean, to be fair, there are now way more people than there were saying this is terrible. You know, it is another step. You know, it's not. I'm not seeing millions of people saying this is great. Put it that way.
Exactly.
So maybe that's
I think, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, I have begun to see certain things as opportunities. You know, for instance, I think that the big loss that happened this week in Scotland, followed by a big win, I think it was for 4 Women Scotland, and then another big win, which is that there's going to be a really quick emergency appeal that Fair Play for Women have been allowed to lodge. So Scotland is not getting its bullshit through easily. You know, it's facing some real difficulties. So whenever, I don't know, I would say if people are depressed by this sometimes, and if it does what it does to all of us, which is break your, you know, every so often something will come along to break your heart. Just always remember that, you know, you're not alone, and there's other people out there who are silently and quietly learning, and they're catching up. And I think a photograph like that is going to catch a lot of people up really quickly. That's true. You know? But I think, you know, I don't think we've all seen it. There is, you know, there is a huge community of people who are, you know, and we've found each other, and we are having, you know. It is quite fun sometimes when you go out and you go to the pub and you meet people. It's given me the opportunity to meet so many different people. It's it's not. It is a fight, and we need to win it. But there are silver linings, and you know, and there's always you know, wine. Yeah. and laughter. Well, you didn't say anything funny, Helen, so stop laughing. No, you know, it is true that you know, I think basically keep your eye open for Sorry, Helen, that was very rude. I thought it would be funnier
It's
than
all
it
right.
was.
I don't care.
No, I thought it would be funnier than it was. To say that. But like the thing is, basically, as these keep coming in, as these kind of horror stories keep coming in, just remember that, you know, I think like there was a brilliant one this week. I can't remember which newspaper had it. I think it was Northern Echo, and it had a piece about a man exposing her manhood to people. Her manhood.
Oh yes.
And they had to delete it. They eventually had to delete it. The tweet is gone.
I didn't see that. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and they've deleted.
Yeah, but probably only because the word manhood is gendered. Male.
Yeah. But
Well, yes,
Daily
I
Record. It was the Daily Record. Thank you. Oh, someone's saying you actually believe this is Trump and Gamergate's fault. No, that's a very unnuanced version of what I'm saying. I'll explain it in more detail at some point in another forum. Last thing I wanted to just quickly mention was Margaret Atwood was interviewed by Hadley Freeman. Really good interview and very revealing. But also very interesting is that she didn't know what the word GC meant. She didn't understand GC. Isn't that strange? Margaret Atwood.
Oh, I see. Well,
Handmaid's Tale.
you know,
so this is someone who throws turf around but doesn't know what gender critical means.
well,
So
maybe she's not that, maybe she doesn't care that much.
But my point is,
hasn't read.
Yeah, but my point is that's what all these people are like. Aaron was the same, Aaron the amount of times that Aaron was surprised by things we were telling him, like they just don't really look into it, they don't care enough about it, and it's a terrible thing to say that about Margaret Atwood, because you think of all women, she would care about it most. But listen, I didn't want to really enter a new subject of conversation. I just thought we haven't talked about that, but I wanted to mention it. Hadley Freeman's interview is well worth reading. Is there anything else before we go?
Well, I think we did touch on it at the beginning, but I do think we need to say, so the Helen Joyce Grace Lavery thing is going ahead. Now, I'm not convinced. I mean, it'll be interesting to go because it'll be nice to I'd be really nice to meet Helen Joyce in the flesh, and it would be nice to see who else is going. I don't know how many people will be there from the other side. I mean, there might be aggro. I don't know about that, but I suspect there'll be good security. But it will, I think,
it's going to be a hard one for them. It's going to be a hard one for them because they can't protest outside it. So,
no, so they might actually just have to go in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, so I've got my ticket. I am going.
Great.
So, but it's also live stream for those who can't go. But I think whatever, it'll be an interesting evening. However,
remind us the date of that event. What's the date?
April the 1st, April Fool's Day.
Okay.
Wow.
Right. I think that is everything. Let's call it a day. Let's get on with our Saturdays. If you guys could hang around for a sec, just with a quick chat with you after this. But for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Have a good Saturday evening, everyone.
Have a good Saturday. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.